Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss the second part of the series, that is episode number 2. Dear students, we had already discussed about episode number 1 of Indian Government and Politics with the name IGP, and we are discussing about the topic, that is social movements. Let us not forget this topic is very important from exams perspective at the level of college or university, and it caters to the needs of the students for those who are having hampered or facing tremendous problems finding not choices exactly what to read and what not to read from the plethora of materials. There are materials in the market, but then that's very taxing. So to make it easier, dear students, from exams perspective, and to have short, crispy, and summarized form of notes, this could be quite useful with the demands of students and their friends who are the aspirants for not only at graduation level, master's level, rather for the preparation of UPSC, PCS, and all exams which could be useful for the scoring purposes. Dear students, we are witnessing this video from the perspective of the syllabus of IGP, Indian Government and Politics, and this is parallel and very much connected, as I said, with the college and university both, along with UPSC and PCS syllabus of IS Mens or PCS Mens. Having said that, we have the question which is the pattern of both, and today we are going to start with the question, what do you mean by social movements? Give the analytical views of features and causes of the social movements. In this particular question, this generally comes if we talk about like from exams point of view of University of Delhi or Central Universities, generally out of 75, 19 plus marks question, this might be in that form, or they can ask a very short note to write of 10 marks. But precisely in this connection, we feel this could be of 19 plus marks. Then how would you write? What would be your approach? Dear students, dear friends, you can do as per the question, you can start first the definitions, meanings of social movement. We had already discussed about this many things, but today specifically, who has talked about this, who has given the definition with particular name, we'll be discussing today. And that's about, if you say social movement, as you know, happens to be a broad concept that describes about multiple factors in addressing the various components of the social orientations. A number of factors exist in the society over a period of time, if not addressed, creep in the form of unrest. In due course of time, this leads to the social movements. Therefore, in this connection, let's go through various definitions given by a specific author. Like according to Doc McAdam, he says social movements are described as those organized efforts on the part of excluded groups. What they are talking about, what he's talking about, what his author is talking about, excluded groups means that group is not very active and as a part of the community life. To promote or resist changes in the structure of society that involve recourse to non-institutional forms of political participation. To put it simply, what he says is Basically, in this connection, what it says, like how best any excluded group who are the part and who are not actively part of the community life or the social group, they might face the problem in this sense, and that is why it's essential. It reflects that particular feature, and that feature is significant from the perspective of how best that exclusivity, how best that person is not really involved in activity or active life. So this is his perception of what he tries to say in this connection, and then we are trying to find out that may not be the right perception given by this particular author. Next is, according to Sydney Tarot, social movements are the expressions of extremism. Therefore, the students, what we are seeing in this connection, that how, according to Sydney Tarot, social movements are the expression of extremism, violence, and deprivation, or collective challenges based on common purposes and special solidarities in a sustained interaction with elites, opponents, and authorities. So, what we find here? We find here it's being talked about social movements are the expressions of, it could be in the form of extremism, it could be in the form of violence, and it could be also in the form of deprivation or collective challenges. What does it refer to collective challenges means? The community might be facing some inner problems and that need to be addressed, which are not being addressed as of now. Precisely on that account, Sydney Tarot talks about the committee is hesitating, the committee is anguish over the common purposes and common causes, and that remain to be sustained, so that interaction with the elites means high classes, or opponents or authorities, from where they expect the matters or issues to be solved. Dear friends, this was Sydney Tarot. Now we have another definition we can take into account, and that's about Herbert Bloomer. According to Herbert Bloomer, it refers to a collective enterprise to establish a new order of life. They have their inception in the condition of unrest and derive their motive power, on one hand, from dissatisfaction with the current form of life, and on the other hand, from wishes and hopes for a new scheme or system of living. Dear students, we have a number of definitions or authors given, and they have expressed their views and perceptions. But it's up to you very much which author you want to pick up and want to use, or want to take the help for writing your exam papers. So, out of four authors, you can pick up any two to remember that, and simply can write in the exams to optimize your scores. Let's have the next author who has defined, and that's about William Kornhauser. According to this author, social movements mobilize people who are alienated from the going or ongoing system. What does it mean? It simply means to understand, let us understand this. It simply means in social movements, there is always a need of group of people, bunch of people, or mobilization of people or who are facing problems tremendously and confronting in one or other form. They are the ones mostly turn out to be the part of the social movement who do not believe in the legitimacy of the established order. Sometimes they believe that they are being cheated, injustices being meted out to them, and who therefore are ready to engage in efforts to take that actions which could suit them. The greatest number of people available to mass movement will be found in those sections of society that have the fewest ties to the social order. It means what it tries to say. Social order also is very, very important, where if the connectivity of the common people who are not part of that essentially face alienation, they are the ones mostly turned to be the part of ongoing disorder process or extremist process or violent process. But you could have seen, or you can see, there are many protests that remain silent, that remain very, very peaceful in a democratic setup. So that purely depends on that. Dear friends, now as per the question, we'll try to see what are the features, what are the characteristic features of a social movement. Before I answer this, do you have any thought process? Do you want to say what could be the features? What are the characteristic features? Yes, any one of you can tell that? And I know, I'm pretty sure many of you have the ideas. You already know that. But the point is how to express from exam's perspective. So let's find the ways to put it like this. Number one, I've made it like in serial order that can be convenient for you. Just go through, just read it, practice it, and write in the exams as it is. That will be quite helpful. You don't need to apply any mind, anything, but to write the entire matters in your exams. Point number one says it is a collective effort. Remember, this is not a single effort. It's never and never been a single effort. So, social movement always has been a collective effort. Two, it carries a shared values and thought processes. And the point what we got, it always carries some shared values. What is shared values? Which are connected part of the society, customs, traditions of any country, state, that constitute people's lifestyle. And then we have third point, the objective and purpose remains to bring. Now it talks about what is the objective, what are the purposes, why social movement. So it says the objective and purposes remain to bring changes in the society. The objective is to bring change. When they are not satisfied, can we have the example in this connection right now? We had talked about Kazakhstan movement, Kazakhstan unrest. Basically, that was unrest which took place in the early month of this year 2022. With also example of regime change which we saw just recently in South Asia, and that was precisely fallout of Ukraine and Russian crisis. And that was to be which part of the camp has to be and has not to be. And we saw the reflection in that in the form of regime change in South Asia. And very much we are seeing in today, if we talk today, currently of this month, so that hesitation is all over the country of that regime change. Why? Because of against illegitimate government being imposed on the public by the external forces with the connivance of the local factors. And who are the sufferers? The entire public are sufferers. So it always happens. What it says, the objective and purpose remains to bring change. So they want to bring change, not to accept those externally imposed regime over them. They want to take their future in their own hands, and they want to lead their life from their own perspective, futures, and decisions, not to be dictated by external forces. So they say this. Therefore, now let's go to the next point. And when we talk about point number 4, under the characteristic features of social movement, it may be well planned or it may not be planned at all. So it generally perceived any movement always is planned, outlined, devised so that the outcome could be corresponding to the nature of the planning. Therefore, social movement always is the manifestation of well planned scheme. Next point, it may be fully peaceful or violent. It may be fully peaceful or violent. Both can be possible options. It depends upon the situations. And the next is the durability of movements is uncertain. It may be shorter one, it may be longer one, or it may go indefinite unless the objective is achieved. Generally, it does not portray an accidental behavior. Dear friends and dear students, what does it mean accidental behavior? It means it doesn't happen all of a sudden. Social movement never happens all of a sudden. Unrest can happen, but accidental behavior is not the manifestation or that part of the social movement, because social movement has a cause, has a reason, has an objective to achieve. Let's move to the next one. It may be headed by the group leader. What we see, what is the difference between crowd behavior and then social movement behavior? The difference is crowd behavior may not have any leader and suddenly people might assemble and then can associate to any cause which could have taken place suddenly, all of a sudden on the spot for any specific reason. But generally it this social movement is generally headed by the group leader. In most of the cases, social unrest gives rise to a social movement. So what it says, social movement generally takes place before it happens, and that first happens social unrest. It means to a social movement to occur, the essential point is that must precede social unrest. Social unrest must be there before a social movement takes place. Dear friends, these were the points which were characteristic features of social movement. But as per the question, let's move to the next part. What it says, causes of social movement. Now we'll see causes. What are the causes? Fine. Before we move to the different sequence of the causes, what do you understand? Do you have something in your mind? You feel that some causes should be there? What's your perception? Appreciate anybody's response right now if you have. Well, I guess definitely you have perceptions, you have regions, and you know the answer also, many of you. No issues. So let's have in an ordered way some causes, some factors which are contributory for the cause of the social unrest. Point number 1, social unrest could happen because of social injustice. In any society, it is said social injustice is one of the biggest reasons that can create problem, and then that lead to chaos and anarchy. Essentially, any civilized society or civilized country believes firmly in a fair justice system should be there. Hence, social injustice is being ruled out, and then social justice should be the need of the hour and a pervasive tool. Let's go to the next point, which could lead to social unrest, and that's all about social disorientations. What does it mean? When there remains fragmentation in the society, when there remains some troubles in the society over any issue, any cause which they are frustrating, which they are agitating, that can be against the authority, that can be against the government, that could be in any form which they are facing. Next is alienated people from the community life. What it says, in many cases, there are many people in the society, as we know, the society is never equal. In an unequal society, so are the people who are unequal as well in a society. But amongst them also those who are alienated, cut off, and they don't have much connectivity in any form. They are having high time and tough time and facing problems that could be also the part of social movement as a part of cause. Let's have the next point. Those people who are economically insecure, insecurity is there. Life is completely plagued by insecurity. Economic life is not there, very fragile. The current status is completely in chaos and chaotic situations that also might lead to the cause of the social unrest. The next point is leading life completely in an isolated place where there is no access of anybody, where there is no resource of economic life, where there is no basic infrastructure, and then a normal life also to survive and to lead happens to be very difficult. Then we have next point we can talk about, that's about loss of social status. As we know, human beings being social in the society, everybody wants to have some social life, some have social status besides social life. How social, what does it mean to when we talk about social status? Social status means some social recognition, some social values, economically, politically, psychologically, or respectfully, or dignity wise, that they should be known to the people and then respected accordingly. Next is cultural drifts. Most of the people encountering cross cultures or new ideas or mingling with them, that constitute understandably cultural drifts. Therefore, students, these points what I just talked right now, you found in this video, are the points which are contributory that can lead to the cause of the social unrest. And we discussed already, social unrest leads to what? Yes, leads to social movement. Okay, the question says analytically view features and causes. Now we'll give analysis. So from analytical perspective, if you talk about analysis, analytical part in today's globalized world, when the world is fast changing, there are opportunities as well as challenges. Both are there. And we already know what is a globalized world. You already are aware about it. You must be knowing globalization, what happens in globalization, how it functions, what are the components, what are the advantages and disadvantages of a globalized world. People across cross sections of the society, when encountered with poverty, unemployment, social injustice, what happens then? That lead to the chaotic situation for the general public, and then that starts the seed of the discontentment, and then anguish, frustration. In a democratic ethos, however, public expectations and the governmental expectations at times confront each other. What happens? Many times, what the policies of any country's government remain something, but that's not appreciative for the public, and public simply get up and then agitate against the policies being formulated by the regime of the day. When the hopes of the public get dashed, they feel frustrated and agitated, and that leads to the social unrest. Eventually, what happens? That causes to, that leads to, yes, the social movement. Dear students, this was an analytical part of that which you need to write accordingly in the exams as it is. And on the top of that, if you see conclusion part, how will you conclude now? Let's wind up the answer according to the question. Dear friends, like I didn't mention, my dear students, I didn't mention here, but you will find in the content about the top 10 top personalities or few top personalities of social movements or top personalities as social activists in our country and then outside the country. Some very, very famous personalities which I escaped, but then you'll find in the content. But when you write in the exams, you can make them as a part of your answer. That will give the impression to the examiner that the candidate is well aware and well versed about the entire part of social movements in a broad perspective. So let's conclude now. Conclusively, it can be stated that the social movements are a significant part of the social systems. Alienation and decohesion means fragmentation, means separation in the society. In any form, lead to the social unrest before the eruption of the apathy of the public against the government. The regime should address the cause and tide over the crisis, as that's very, very essential, because merely applying the tools of the suppression on the part of the regime anywhere in the world in a democratic setup, something is unwarranted. After all, what the public, they are facing the problems, they have genuine right to get addressed, and that could be in many form or in any form. Hence, the responsibility squarely lies on the shoulder of the government of that day to tide over the crisis, to find the solution as to best what could be the amicable solution on the basis of which they can move on and find remedy for the public. After all, the state is a welfare state. Thank you very much, dear students. If you like, do share, like, and subscribe so that you can get the latest notifications about the latest videos. Also, if it's helpful for you, do pass on to your friends and relatives so that they also can take benefit out of it. Finally, thanks for watching the video. Thank you very much.